Good afternoon, bonsoir à tous. This starting slide is a practical joke from my team. I have been traveling the last days, I always travel, and we have been trying to put together a very short PowerPoint presentation. The team knows that I hate PowerPoints. They came up with a fantastic first slide, which was showing, one of those iconic moments of the games with the camera and so on. I told them, it's about innovation, this is not what we know all that. And this is what they came up with. So this is a data center cold room full of servers. They are so sick and tired of listening to me talking about innovation, technology. They know that I love technology. I want us to embrace everything. That was the response of the team. This is what technology is. True. The question is, how do we turn this very dark and soulless room into what the Olympics stand for and what our vision stands for? In a sense, the Olympic Games and the IOC is the original and most powerful disruptor in the world of sports. If you come to think of it, the IOC owns an event that takes place every 4 years. Now, every 4 and every 2 years with the Winter Games, and we have also the Youth Games. But that's it. They don't own or control any sport. They don't own or control any athletes. What do they have? A set of values. Friendship, respect, and also a few ideas that have been with us for more than a century. They see in sports, the Olympic family sees into sports, a possibility to actually create a better world through sports. And funnily enough, this strange and seemingly naive idea has been extremely to the point and successful for many, many years. In the Games of Rio, more than half the Earth's population got hooked and watched the Games in Rio. They are not all sports fans. If we want to be clear and realistic between ourselves, we're all people who love sports. There are not, more than half of the world's population are not really committed sports fans. Almost half of them never watch anything else other than the Olympics. So all these people have come and they wanted to participate and share an experience that has been driven, that's being driven every 2 years by the best amongst us, the athletes. And this is the heart of what we do. So trying to answer the question, how on earth do we use technology and what do we use it for? You heard this morning, an infinite amount of possibilities, an infinite amount of buzzwords. They're all true. They're all very effective tools. They're all things of the future. They will all happen. But where do you start? What is it that you want to do? Yeah, it's everything about technology, but what is it that you want to do? For us, at least, the Olympic experience is about telling the stories of the best athletes in the world, because we believe that those stories are strong enough, inspirational enough. The stories of people like Pierre are strong enough to really create and build a better world. Our responsibility is to use technology tools to tell the story, but at the heart, the storytelling is fundamental. Why? Because humans, we are at the end of the day problem-solving machines that use storytelling in order to imagine solutions. This is what we have been doing for thousands of years. This is why storytelling is at the heart of every society in human history, and this is why it remains so important. So it's not just about the score. Pierre was watching before his own video. He knows that he won the gold medal. He got hooked by it. I got hooked by it. I produced it. Still there were moments of anticipation, moments that I didn't know what would happen afterwards. I had watched it many, many times. I was sitting in the broadcast center in Pyeongchang last winter. I invited President Bach and we sat together and I showed him a coverage we did on 8K on super high resolution of a competition in figure skating. He was at the competition the previous evening. That was a replay. So we're sitting there watching for 5 minutes. He got hooked. He liked it. At the end of an effort of an athlete, he started clapping at something that had happened the previous night. He was in the venue, he knew the result, he was clapping at the screen. So that means that there is something much deeper that happens to us humans when we get this storytelling contact with the best amongst us, which are the athletes. So how do we do that? In the Olympic world, essentially we have started going two ways. Traditionally, we were doing the coverage. Our broadcasting partners ensured huge revenues for the Olympic movement, not just for the IOC, but also worldwide coverage. Now, in order to be able to do that, at some point the IOC realized that they had to create an entity that would look after this production, because the scope was simply too big for any single broadcaster to do it, and this is how OBS was created. So during games time, we do the coverage of the game. We cover every single piece of competition, ceremonies, and so on. Yes, this is what we were created for. However, this is what actually happened in the last games. The Olympics, and especially the summer edition of the Olympics, has been super successful for the last 3-4 editions of the Games. They have reached a point where you say that practically every human on Earth that has access to a screen will watch something. However, look at what has happened. This is the total amount of programming that all the rights-holding broadcasters have put on the air during the last 4 editions of the Winter and Summer Games. Look at the summer edition of the Games in Athens, 2004. If you put together everything that, you know, Télévision Française, French television, NBC, BBC, the broadcasters of the world, all the programming they put out together would amount to 35,000 hours. In Rio, that was 357,000 hours, 10 times more. That's a reflection of the thirst for consumption of content in every different format. This has been driven, obviously, by the emergence of digital media. You see how much they play a role in that. It's interesting that the Olympics keep actually also slightly growing, even on traditional television, which in my view probably is a secondary effect from the huge explosion on digital. That means that even younger audiences at some point watch traditional television driven by their main consumption on digital. So this is the story of just those 4 games. 35,000 Athens 2004, not Athens 1896, and 357,000 hours in Rio. That shows you that's a reflection of thirst of actual media consumption beyond traditional ratings. How do you deal with this nice problem? Because we're saying that the games are getting big, they're getting unsustainable. True. How do you deal? How do you go about producing all this amount of content? This is a problem that we started facing actually right after Beijing, and we have carried out a number of measures to try and address this huge problem, because we have been saying all day today about new ideas, about how we're going to produce, different ways of producing, and so on. This is all nice, but somebody will need to pay for that, somebody will need to produce it, and this will only bring additional requirements and costs. This shows you one of the ways that we have followed to do that, which is the increased production from the host broadcaster on behalf of all of our rights holders of additional content. That's primarily related to the emergence of social media, special content for social media, for digital, shorter form, behind the scenes, and so on. You see, in the Winter Games in Torino, we produced 1,000 hours. The actual duration of competition in the Winter Games is more or less 900 hours. So in Torino, essentially we produced the live coverage of the events and a few summaries and a few other features. In Pyeongchang, we produced 5,600 hours. And all this additional incremental competition was still less than 1,000 hours, was content related to different ways of telling stories, primarily for younger audiences. And this is the way we're going. Now, To do that, of course, if you follow traditional workflows and traditional ways of working in media, this is impossible and unsustainable. The games are already too big. In Pyeongchang, our broadcast center was the smallest we had in the last editions of the games. In Tokyo, we will have a broadcasting center which will be 25% less than what it was in Beijing. And we will produce, most likely, the biggest amount of content that has ever been produced in a single place in one single area. Just to give you an idea, out of Pyeongchang, the connectivity for all this content to go out in the world amounted to a connectivity, to the international connectivity of a country the size of Sweden. Those are the volumes we're talking about. For this scale, technology is important. It's for this scale, for allowing this experience to be shared, where those cold server rooms with the servers are very important, and I adore them for that. This is the way we have gone in order to address the problem of covering the games. We introduced a number of cloud-based technologies. Some of you may have heard that we recently announced a new platform we are building together with our partners, Alibaba, which will be a platform that will allow actually a big amount of the process of production to take place virtually in the cloud. It's not an easy thing. It's the holy grail of cloud technologies, but we believe it makes a lot of sense to try that in the Olympic Games to achieve efficiencies. Also, we have introduced new platforms that are web-based. You don't need to have presence in the games to access them, to get this content, to download and publish. We started that in Pyeongchang. It was a big success with broadcasters. We continue for Tokyo. My point is that broadcasting, in order to be viable and in order to maintain the level of quality that we have been used to, needs to be very intelligent and very smart. All those initials that we have been hearing, including AR, including AI, all of them are relevant, but they need to be used as specific tools to address specific issues. And for me, is to make our work more efficient and to tell the stories of the athletes in a more exciting way. This is the way we have been dealing and we are dealing for the games time. However, if in the past it was good enough to wait for 4 or 2 years for an edition of the games to come, this went away with the previous century. People have no more patience. We have said this, somebody said this morning. Patience died with the end of the 20th century. So people want to be engaged anywhere they are, 24/7, anytime, any place. And the IOC, the Olympic movement, realized that it's all good and nice with the Olympic Games. It's a huge success. People engage, but other than a few sports, most sports actually are facing a problem of visibility, especially a problem of relevance to the younger generation in the periods in between. And this is why the Olympic movement, and not just the IOC, but international federations, national Olympic committees, athletes all together, took a decision to go ahead with a digital-first initiative to create a digital platform, the Olympic Channel, where all sports, not just the Olympic sports, but all sports, could find a place that can be always on, where people can go to find what they want about sports, and most important, be inspired to adapt and to adopt sports in their daily lives. So this is how the Olympic Channel was created. It was launched 2 years ago after the end of the Rio Games, with with a very clear vision of engaging primarily what's usually called the millennial generation around the world. And in order to do that, we have to do it in ways and using tools that are relevant to this generation. Mobile first, digital content first, go to social media to find these people and then bring them to our platform. This is where we are right now. In the channel, in those 2 years of its existence, we have managed to have more than 2 billion video views across all our platforms, O&O and social media. We have created a community of 8 million followers on social media. What's important is we have created 11,500 individual pieces of content, covering every single country of the world and most of the sports, not just the sports in the Olympic program, but many sports which are not even in the Olympic program. I don't think that there is such a universal sports platform in the world. We produced a number of original series. Many of them have won several awards. We have carried 1,650 different events. Many sports struggle other than in their core territories and the core areas. We have made the commitment to use the channel to provide traction, to provide distribution and broadcast for all sports everywhere in the world. So wherever in the world you are, you can stay in touch with your sport. We have made a number of agreements with the international sports federations. I think that they have embraced and support this effort. And along the way, we have also taken care of our funding needs, our funding partners, the top partners of the IOC in Bridgestone, Toyota, Alibaba, and recently Omega. And every new agreement that the IOC comes up also includes the Olympic Channel and its digital assets. We have embraced also our Games Time rights holders. NBC in the States, Eurosport in Europe, beIN in Middle East, CCTV in China, Globo in Brazil, because this needs to be a concentrated and consolidated effort. It's not about us doing something that we do not provide value to our partners. On the contrary, it's for us to do something to provide additional partner. For me, the single most important figure among all those is that among the people who engage with the content of the Olympic Channel, 82% of them are below the age of 35. You're all sports people, and you know the elephant in the room, and I think this is a success in itself. We know very well that there are some sports where the average following is probably in the early 60s, and they're growing 1 year by every year. So this addresses one of the key considerations and concerns we have about the future of sports. Recently, and I'm coming back from Argentina, where we had an event, the Youth Olympic Games of Buenos Aires, which I think in a sense shows what the Olympic vision is moving for the future. I think those games were very, very special. They were put together at a fraction of the cost of what the games are. And included many new sports, especially sports that grow and develop in the urban environment. You come to think of it, many of the sports that we still practice were invented in the 19th century when there were ample green fields around. Now there are cities. There isn't so much space, there isn't so much capacity. I'm not sure whether football would have been invented today. Yeah, it's hugely popular and we love it, but nobody would come today with an idea about a sport that needs all these acres to be played. People come up with different ideas which are equally exciting. And also there was something about the vision, people's participation, the full venues, bringing the opening ceremony in the heart of a big metropolis. That was very, very special. I'm happy that the Olympic Channel was the primary international broadcaster of this event as well. So I would like to close simply with sharing with you a very short video of some images from those games. Thank you. I would like you to allow me to finish with 2 words for Pierre. Pierre, your space dedicated in the Olympic Channel is there. You can find all videos, including the Sochi. I checked it before. The ice was really slashy, but you can watch it here. And the second is the question. You mentioned something about fat old guys doing your sport. Can we discuss a little bit later? Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you, Yiannis. Okay. Can we